In 2023, the Swiss State Secretariat for Economic Affairs began analyzing the activities of the Geneva company and its subsidiary in Dubai. According to the investigation, in 2023, the Swiss company moved its operations with Russian oil to Dubai and continued to trade at price above the price cap of $60 per barrel set by Western countries, writes the Financial Times.
For one, Swiss authorities signal to the market that they do not tolerate circumvention via subsidiaries in places like Dubai. Second, by referring the matter to the federal prosecutor, SECO also signals that it seeks considerable punishment, maybe even prison sentences. Patrick Eberhard, expert in international trade and trade finance, in a comment to Financial Times.
In the EU, violation of sanctions will be considered an offense on the territory of all member states, and the proceeds of violating the sanctions against Russia will be subject to confiscation in favor of Ukraine. This is stated in the European Parliament resolution adopted on March 12 during the plenary session in Strasbourg. The European Parliament proposes that EU states introduce into their national legislation penalties for individuals or entities that violate sanctions. Governments should guarantee that circumventing sanctions will be considered a criminal offense in their countries, the resolution says.
Resolution on the directive on the definition and punishment of criminal offences will make sanctions more effective. Sophie in 't Veld, Liberal Map from the Netherlands.
Legal inaccuracies in national laws allowed Russian oligarchs to choose the EU member state where it was easier for Russia to circumvent sanctions. Member of the European Parliament, Thijs Ruthen, said, "Now the resolution obligates each EU country to set up a special body to coordinate and cooperate between national law enforcement agencies and EU institutions responsible for implementing sanctions."
For Russia, sanctions and the fight against sanctions is an intellectual competition. The West imposes sanctions, Russia comes up with ways to circumvent them. The West starts blocking those holes. Russia sees that and comes up with new ways. This process is constant, and the pressure from the West is constantly growing. As a matter of fact, as well as Russia's attempts to come up with other ways to circumvent the sanctions, so there is pressure. The pressure is constantly increasing.
At the end of February, the U.S. Department of Justice announced increased enforcement of sanctions, export restrictions, and economic countermeasures against Russia. In particular, according to the agency's website, money laundering charges were filed on February 13th against a sanctioned Russian company for assisting Russian nationals in the international movement of funds.
During that time, we have seized, restrained, or sought the forfeiture of nearly $700 million in assets of sanctioned oligarchs and other enablers of the Russian regime. We have disrupted schemes to illegally export military-grade technology to Russia. We have brought charges against 70 individuals and 5 corporate entities for sanctions evasion, export control violations, money laundering, and other crimes. And we are pursuing every available option to transfer the funds that we are forfeiting from the Kremlin's enablers to the Ukrainian people.
Ukraine, in its turn, intends to confiscate the assets of the main Russian manufacturer of Kinzhal air ballistic missile. The Justice Ministry has filed a lawsuit with the Supreme Anti-Corruption Court. This was reported on the website of the Ukrainian agency. The Ministry of Justice does not specify what assets could be confiscated. According to journalists of The Insider, contractors of Russian enterprises that produce Kinzhal missiles have not yet fallen under EU restrictions. Reported by Anastasia Tarnavska, Krystyna Dąbrowska, UATV News.